Yeah, Arindam, I think we should start. Already it's 3 p.m.
Good
Arindam,
afternoon, all present
thank you
here.
for joining with
On
us.
behalf of SIAT, I, Arindam Ray, the Program Director of SIAT, welcome all of you on the 2 weeks national level online capacity building program on geospatial technology in research and development, organized by the International Institute of Geospatial Science and Technology, IIGST, a constituent unit of SIAT. The demand for the service offered by the geospatial technology for different applications such as the utilized transportation, defense and intelligence and other has grown significantly over the years. Geospatial technology is an evolving area of interest that comprises remote sensing, global positioning system, and geographic information system. This technology allows us to obtain information about the Earth's surface, which is used for further analysis and visualization. Recognizing the above needs, the goal of the IIGST, a constituent unit of SIAD, has taken this initiative to develop the national capacity for geospatial science and technology development through the capacity for science and technology development through the diverse program in collaboration with various partner organizations working that field. Now it is the moment when I want to invite the key person of this program, Mr. Bishwit Roy Chaudhary, the chairman of SIAT. Mr. Roy Chaudhary, over to you.
Thank you, Arindam. Thank you. On behalf of International Institute of Geospatial Science and Technology, first of all, I would like to give my heartiest thanks to all of you, especially our today's keynote speaker come guest of honor, Dr. Professor Anil Kumar Gupta sir, from the National Institute of Disaster Management, Government of India, for joining with us, along with the other dignitaries, participants, and our associate knowledge partners, that is the Northeastern Space Application Center, NATMO, National Atlas and Thematic Mapping Organization, ISRI India, National Institute of Urban Affairs, and SkyMap Global, and also the resource persons who will join from the different government organizations like Indian Institute of Remote Sensing and National Mission for Clean Ganga, Ministry of Jal Shakti different. So on behalf of IIGST, on behalf of SIAT, I would like to give thanks to all of you for joining with us. Today, the program which we are going to start is 2 weeks National Geospatial Training, that is the capacity building program through our IIGST platform. It's just a beginning because we have developed our platform, that is the IIGST platform, with a motto to share the knowledge to enrich the knowledge, help to enrich the knowledge of geospatial technology, along with the utilization of its different verticals for the benefit of the society and also for the students. We are continuously doing lots of academic activities through this platform, capacity building programs, even courses, and hope in future we are also planning to focus on PhD programs as that we can support our governments, and we are working in collaboration as we are working in collaboration with the different government organizations. So we are also happy to share our knowledge and with them, and also can be a part of them for various research and planning project, etc. This IIGST platform, which is developed not only for academic purposes but also for capacity building programs, particularly focusing in the eastern and northeastern regions, because you know that there is a huge lacking in geospatial technology related institutions, particularly geospatial technology related institutions, which are mainly focused for this field. And along with that, we are happy that within a short span of time, though SIAT is a mother organization, but we have developed this platform in the last December, last week year of December. But within a short span of time, we have continuously doing lots of training academic programs, and already we have served more than 400 people throughout the country, because we have conducted our training our capacity building programs, our courses to online mode. So already we are happy that we have associated with the National Atlas and Thematic Mapping Organization NATMO. We are happy that NISTAC has also shows their interest to be associated with us, and NIUA also. Even today, the resource persons who have joined, I really admire his excellency on his and the chapter on his knowledge, Dr. Gupta, because I met him since, though virtually, since the last 2 years before. And really, I am thankful that today I got the opportunity to hear from him because he's a so much busy person and so much knowledgeable person on his domain. And that's why we decided that these programs should be initiated by the keynote lecture of Dr. Gupta. So thank you, sir, for joining with us. And all the participants, those who are joining with us, hope you will enjoy our these 2 weeks journey. And along with that, we will also help to all of you in future also, because if you go in our website, you will find lots of activities we have conducted. So definitely you will be helpful by us, by our different flavor of training modules and courses also. So with this, once again, I would like to thanks to all of you. Thanks for joining. Jai Hind. Over to you, Arindam.
Thank you, Mr. Roy Chaudhary. Now I want to invite Mrs. Munmun Borman, the Director of Geoinformatics Division, IIGST, to say a few words.
Thank you, Arindam sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes,
Am
yes.
I audible? Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Arindam sir. Thank you, Bishwajit sir. Really, today, by seeing the people over here, I'm feeling more privileged, actually, rather than happy, and more privileged in order to I able to put some words in front of such delegates and in front of such academician and the other working people. So I'm feeling very privileged. And first of all, I would like to welcome all of you in the national level capacity building workshop. And I would like to welcome our guest of honor, Professor Anil Kumar Gupta, in this podium, and would like to and feeling privileged and feeling nice and good that we will able to hear you today. And along with that, I would like I'm looking forward, actually I can say that I'm looking forward to experience valuable moments by sharing and gaining knowledge. So of course I will tell this podium is the platform of sharing and gaining knowledge. I'm very sure that this journey will not end here. This journey is going on and it will go far. It will be not limited up to this workshop only. It will go far along with all of you in future also. I'm very much sure about that. Because I'm saying that we about to share a platform. Is the platform we are having such a great resource person along with us that they are going to share their experiences, all the modules they will share. Of course they have gone through all the modules and will able to deliver all of you through their experiences. So this is a huge gain of the knowledge that whenever we have learned, we going to learn something from somebody's experience. That means a lot, and that means a thing we are getting is not uncomparable with the other bookish languages. So I'm sure that this workshop is going to leave a mark in everyone's mind and will drive you into a great journey on geospatial technology in research and development. No, if I continue and if I talk about the geospatial technology, we are living in world's fifth largest economy by nominal GDP, of course, and India is right now on track of revival and is looking at opportunities to fuel its economic growth. So the challenge is here in front of us and need to put the mitigation plan to hit the challenges we are facing during this pandemic time. So here the technology plays a huge role. Because if we see back, we realize that geospatial technology played a major role in dealing with the impact of the COVID-19 situation by creating such a spatial dashboard. And here the role, and I can say that, and I realized over the websites, over the social networks, I able to realize that not even the government organization, even a common man helped and stood along with the government organization, taking the full advantages of GIS tools and able to create such a great spatial dashboards and able to create such a storytelling maps and help us in the situation of the COVID-19 situation. So I can say that the common man today, and if I tell about us that some common man within us is also able to stood beside the government's decision-making support and by creating good web support systems. And hence, GIS technology continuing and will continue to play a major role in decision support system of government sector by bringing together multidisciplinary subjects in the field of climate change, disaster management, socially, earth observation capabilities, water resource management, and etc. Besides this, along with that, we able to see that the usage of geospatial tools getting increases in the healthcare sectors also. New geospatial technology is widely acknowledged in this field. And before also, and very slowly, but it is widely acknowledged in the economic growth. In the use of this technology in the economic growth is widely acknowledged with the time being also. But there is much more we have to contribute. We have to stood beside our society in the time of pandemic and the else time also. So these are the things we have done so far, but there are many more things that about to come. So we have to emerge with the new technologies. And we can create, like if I say, for example, for our society, whatever the situation is going on right now, we can play a role by using geospatial tools in helping government to plan, operate, and manage vaccine distribution and management. India is blessed with such a large-scale IT workforce. Being a IT people also, this is the thing that I have to tell, that India is blessed with a large-scale IT workforce, and I feel that this is the thing which is still yet not developed fully with the workforce of GIS. We have to mingle these two portions in very well manner, so that in future also we can progress in design and development of the knowledge-based geospatial decision support, and will contribute not for the Indian government, even for the world. We can set up an example, because here this is the sector that we have to develop more. We understood all the government organization need geospatial technology in some ways in order to do for their decision making purpose and for the other knowledge based decisions. So geospatial technology is going to be boom in the near future also. And if we work together along with the interdisciplinary stream, then we will able to create much more things over, like it happened last 1 year. The need make us to create a new good things over the web based and over the tool based also. So that the things we can able to create in future also, but that is of course will be happen with the help of sharing and gaining the knowledge, sharing and gaining the experience. So this is going to be a great platform where we will share our experiences, our resources, and the resources which we were working together to deliver the knowledge is actually very rich in experience and in the knowledge purpose. So I feel that you will feel great and you will experience by hearing, and you will I want to congratulate all of you who are going to hear such a experienced people in from future and from such a great resource people. And at the end, I wanted to sum up by saying congratulations and all the best for the workshop. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Borman. Now I will invite our keynote lecturer of today, Dr. Anil Kumar Gupta, the Professor of Head, ECDRM, National Institute of Disaster Management, Government of India. He is formerly head of Institute of Environment and Development Studies, Bundelkhand University, Jhansi, since 2003. Later, he joined NDM in 2006. He possesses the interdisciplinary expertise with the institutional development, administration, and management, and coordinated several international and national projects. Over 100 publications, including 10 books and 45 papers, and guided PhD research also. We are extremely privileged to have him with us today. Dr. Anil Kumar Gupta, sir, over to you.
Very good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Arindam, for my introduction.
Good afternoon,
and
sir.
Dr. Datta, Dr. Munmun, all the members of team. First of all, my compliments to all of you for excellent team and excellent teamwork and very good initiative. I'm very happy that a very good number of participants are here, and you have chosen very important themes also. This theme is one of the very important theme of the present time, as currently India is signatory to a number of international treaties, of which 3 are very important. One is related with climate change, that we call Paris Climate Agreement. Other is Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. And the third is the global goals, that we have the 17 goals. We call it SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. And achieving that, the period designated is 2015 to 2030 for all the 3. 6 years have already gone. Now we have around 9 years. Now we have around 14 years. So 1/3 has already gone, 2/3 time is there. So India as a country, and we as people of India, and also the team of professionals, basically have a huge responsibility on our shoulders for this journey. And this journey of achieving sustainable development goals, Paris Climate Agreement, disaster risk reduction, all by 2030, it's not that easy. So there are certain important aspects which are very much cross-cutting across almost all the dimensions of these 3 global goals, or 3 global agenda, of which India is signatory. Many times making decisions are not that easy, and any kind of planning which requires monetary resources, that requires human resources, that may require material resources, and part of the resources may be available locally and part of the resources may be mobilized from other sources. Then the challenge can also come from geographical limitations. Challenge can also come from ecological limitations. I would like to quote about a book that was published long ago. It was 1980. The book was published by a club of elite people that was called the Club of Rome in Italy. The title of the book was Limits to Growth. So basically, that is true as of now also. because our limits have our process of growth has to face lot of limitations. And when we have to grow, when we have to keep on our journey, but the resources are limited, then I think prioritization is something that is very important aspect. So how to prioritize the resources, how to prioritize the money, how to prioritize various aspects of our development based on the geographical issues, based on the vulnerability of the people, maybe social dimensions, maybe the economic dimensions, maybe the availability of raw materials. So the question comes of decision support system. Many times there are huge amount of data, and data, I would use very simpler terms. Data is in the form of tables, sometimes even a very different data formats also. So how to take a decision? So I think geospatial technology, which sometimes we call it geoinformatics systems or geoinformation science, or sometimes we say that space technology, sometimes we say remote sensing and GIS, several names. But basically it is a combination of data related with geographical dimensions and also how to manage that data on a common platform. So basically GIS, geospatial technology, or remote sensing and GIS, whatever name we say, basically it is a facilitator of an effective decision support system. Another dimension that is important for all of us, because in the past many times it has also been faced that our planning has not been very accurate. Why I say so? Because in India, and not only in India, many countries of this region, Southeast Asia and South Asia, urban flooding has become a common challenge. Almost all the cities are facing these kind of things, urban flooding. All the cities, or half of the cities in this region, are facing urban heat island syndrome. Then in the COVID period, we also had faced the issue of migrant laborers, and we realized that some inadequacy, some kind of lacunae, some kind of weakness has been in our urban planning systems. So we need to improve our precision about the land uses, the precision about the people, the population density, precision about the resources that is required and the resources that is available. So improving the precision and accuracy is another dimension that we are looking for. Third dimension is time. Many of the ambitious projects, time becomes a limiting factor. Now you do not have much time. For example, a disaster has taken place. Recently, Taotai disaster was there, then another disaster was there in Orissa. Cyclones are big disasters. Sometimes earthquake also takes place. These are big disasters. Chennai was flooded by 2015. It was flooded. Then Kerala was flooded. These are big disasters. Immediately following the disaster, we have to calculate the damage. We have to assess the damage. If we think that we will be going to each and every doorstep and collecting data, I think there will be so much challenges that we have to face. Lack of precision, lack of accuracy, collecting data in various different formats, so these kind of anomaly, and then huge amount of time that may be required. Whereas in order to start our relief and recovery activities, the assessment has to be carried out very fast. So this is one example. In any other kind of examples also. For example, now in our country, a large number of developmental activities are taking place in our strategic defense areas, in our border areas. We don't have much time to go and collect the data, all the data. So time effectiveness is another need of the time. And looking to all these, I think the focus is on remotely collecting the information. And space technology and the advances in satellite-based intervention, satellite-based facilities, I think this has become possible. Lot of surveillance, lot of monitoring, lot of cross-check, cross-verification of facts being done through satellite-based tracking system, satellite data systems. Certainly, there may be some amount of ground truthing that is required. So, this journey of achieving SDGs requires the use and promotion of geospatial technology more and more. Recently, in this month only, the United Nations has declared this 10-year period as the UN Decade for Eco-Restoration. I think that is the biggest challenge the world is facing. Now we have realized that our ecosystems have damaged and lost to a very significant level. In order to have pace in protecting our ecosystems, in dealing with our wildlife habitat areas, out of which many are very difficult terrains, reaching personally there would not get that easy. Doing any kind of surveillance and monitoring, a study of biodiversity, a study of evapotranspiration system, a study of various kind of vegetations, even tracking the movements of wildlife or the animals. I think that has been made very simple by the application of space and geospatial technology. And in this decade, in the period of eco-restoration, UN Decade for Eco-Restoration, this geospatial technology is going to be used very widely. So this technology will have very, very significant use. Then geospatial technology also has other dimensions like integration of GPS technology, global positioning system. I think that has become so popular, and we are very often very frequently using this technology through even our mobile phones. We use our Google Maps and so many things for tracking various information. You send your own location to people, then you whenever you go somewhere, we use Google Maps. But besides this, vehicle tracking the movement and location of the service engineers, I think within business, within transport, within tourism, these things are of very significant application. Agriculture, recently we have prepared the National Agriculture Disaster Management Plan of the country. That is a national plan. There we have also suggested an improved mechanism for monitoring and declaration of drought. Monitoring and declaration of drought for quite long time in India has been dependent on the data collection manually by the rural officers that we call Patwari or the revenue officers. Now we have transformed and put in the use of geospatial technology attached with the mobile technology, method of geotagging, and I think that is a very significant move in very fast, very time effective, very cost effective monitoring of drought-led damages. And the tools like NDVI, VCI, I think these are very important tools in assessing the impact of drought on the large scale. levels. Then land use is another very important dimension that relates with improving urban and rural planning, but also the efforts to be done under the UN Decade for Eco-Restoration. I think land use planning and geospatial technology are such linked that one is incomplete without the other. And land use planning has now taken a new form that we call it landscape ecology. Because many of the challenges of hydrological systems, drought, floods, many of the challenges of climate change are related with landscape ecology. And even at the urban level, now we are recommending that the urban planning need to evolve one step further to go to watershed-based planning. And there, in fact, the geospatial technology is going to be of great help. Then, during this period of COVID pandemic, remotely working, this strategy has came forth a lot. And I think geospatial technology is one of the biggest facilitator to improve our activities for research, development, monitoring, survey, planning, evaluation, all these kind of things. Recently, we have published a paper in the Journal of Technological Forecasting and Social Change, jointly with our team with IIT Indore, that how climatic and social factors might have affected the spread of COVID-19 infections from one region to other region. Some research is still going on. However, in that kind of research, the use of geospatial technology has been a significant contributor, because we will have to put in all the data in the form of maps and use the mapping based approaches for carrying out interpretations. Then, as we know, that climate change is one of the significant threats to the humanity that is precipitating more number of disasters, and we have to deal with both climate change mitigation as well as climate change adaptation. Geospatial technology helps us map the geographical dimensions of the climatic extremes or the extreme weather events, and to combine the attributes of the natural factors, that is the onset of these extremes, with the attributes of social vulnerability, attributes of developmental aspects, maybe population density, drainage, hydrological systems, elevations, and other resources, to see that what are the risks and what are the possibilities of these extreme events to be realized in the form of damaging events, and therefore what are the risks of facing a disaster. So I think these are very important dimensions. Lastly, I would also like to touch upon that how disaster response requires the effective use of geospatial technology. When the disasters are there, many times because of the disaster-related disruption and damage, the normal routes are disrupted, and we'll have to immediately search for the alternative routes. We'll also have to see the suitable locations for the base areas, logistic operations, stockpiling, relief camps, relocating the people, and other activities. And geospatial technology provides us very fast solutions, because we can process a huge amount of data in the form of maps in a very, very short time, and that can help us better accuracy and time-effective decisions. And therefore, in the nutshell, geospatial technology is a great facilitator of decision support system, which is the very, very important aspect of our developmental journey at the present time. And what I see, the next 10 years or so, geospatial technology is going to be so popular that our life will be within maps, or the maps will be within our life. So we are going to look at that how geospatial technology can be better harnessed. This technology has already grown. Now it is required that we learn and we use more and more, so that our planning, monitoring, and implementation can be more effective, more performing. So I tried to use the most simpler examples, most simpler areas to showcase that how geospatial technology is of direct benefit to all of us. And I must compliment the team for taking up initiative of this training program. And my best wishes to all the participants who are going to improve their knowledge and skills, because geospatial technology requires knowledge also, but more to that, it requires skills also. And practice is the most important aspect there. So I would suggest that you attend this program and then you practice. You take a small case studies, you take a small examples, and I think you will sharpen your skill and performance, and that will help you improve your research presentations, your research processing of data within your research, and that will enrich your research outcomes also. So thank you and best wishes all of you. Over to you, madam. Thank you. That's all from my side.
Thank you, sir. Arindam, are you here? Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir. So
Uh,
I think Arindam,
Arindam.
sir, I think Arindam, sir, are you here?
Maybe some network issues. Okay. Thank you, sir, once again for joining with us, and also share some valuable points regarding our activities and in future prospects also. Sir, I would like to just inform you that we, under our SIAT platform, you know that we have developed a center, that is the Center for Disaster Management and Planning. And in future, we are also associated with the different academic activities, though in NATMO and other aspects. And recently, we have connected with the NIDM also. Bindal sir, your honorable executive director of NIDM, he shows his interest to work on short-term training perspective also. So, for this respect, in this respect, will you kindly suggest some points as that we can work through our IIGST platform also in collaboration with NIDA for this kind of short-term project or capacity building? I mean, we on which points we have to focus on that? Sir, am I audible? Gupta sir, you are mute. Please unmute yourself.
Yes. Please tell me.
Sir, I am telling you that on behalf of IIGST platform, which our mother organization is SIAD. So under SIAD, we have developed a center, that is the Center for our Disaster Management and Planning.
Okay,
and like
good.
other centers, we are working with the
Very good. Very good initiative. Very good initiative, and we can discuss it sometimes later, and we'll see that how we can support you. Certainly, we'll be happy to support you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now I will request Mr. Dr. Rakesh Ranjan Thakur. He is a project scientist of Odisha Space Application Center, that is the Space and Science and Technology Department, Government of Odisha. So, Dr. Thakur is a research interest on coastal geomorphology, coastal zone management related aspect, and natural resource management, coastal morphometry, remote sensing, geospatial technology application. So he has a publication of more than 6 national and international journals and conducting lots of academic programs through different verticals. And he has already done lots of projects under the supervision of under the government of Odisha Space Application Center. So today he has joined with us. Thank you, Dr. Thakur. And we have kept a special lecture of Dr. Thakur about the application of geospatial technology in coastal zone study. So, Dr. Thakur, thanks to you for joining with us in our IIGS platform. Over to you, please.
Okay, thank you very much, BRC. It's my pleasure to be in this platform, and we are having a very good relationship since last a year. So, just now I am presenting. Okay, whether my slide is visible now?
Yes, sir, your
Yeah.
slides are visible.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. So, good afternoon, everybody. And as BRC introduced about me, I'm working in this Odisha Space Application Center. So we are actually dealing with a lot of works, mainly on coastal related issue. And Odisha Space Application Center it is an apex body in Odisha, and it is also one of the oldest body in our country in the field of remote sensing and geoinformatics. So today I'll be having some discussion about the application of geospatial technology in mainly in coastal study, how this remote sensing, geoinformatics, GIS, all this emerging technology, how it is useful in dealing with different issues of the dynamic area that is coast. And nowadays most of the people around the world, they are living along the coast. In India also the same situation is there, and in Odisha also, Odisha, West Bengal, Kerala, all the coastal states, the coast is in very pressure situation. So this situation can be solved, or geospatial technology can be used as a tool. It can be very useful in dealing the situation, and we can plan for a sustainable management in the coastal area. So just in this slide you can see on the left hand side some beautiful of our nature, beauty of our nature. Some natural things are there, like a mountain is there, tiger is there, forests are there. So these are self-regulated. They don't need any technology to be regulated. Okay, but in the right side you can see man-made features are there. Transportation, heavy traffic is there. A lot of urbanization are there. Roads are there. These are managed. So nowadays there is an increase of conflict between the natural things along with the man-made things. It is happening very rapidly nowadays. In other words, I can see that nowadays it is a changing world. The world is changing very rapidly, and it is also very complex. So we are facing a lot of challenge. Nowadays the population growth is very high, is very explosive. So urbanization is going on very rapidly, globalization is there, economic development no doubt is there, but there is environmental changes is there. So we are facing a lot of problems, and these are very least amount of things I have added here. Besides these, a lot of other problems are there that can be we can see later on. Now, as I told that we are facing a lot of problems. So the problem can be understood or the problem can be sorted out by using some evolving technology. So nowadays, what is happening? We're having some problem, and we need to better ways to represent what is there in our earth, in our terrain. Here in the left hand side, you can see this is our world, and India is highlighted here. So we have to represent it, and we have to understand what it is, and we have to know how to manage it. And so our world is a system. Nowadays, by staying in our room, in our lab, we can have we can communicate to the whole world. We can use the information from another place. Right now, I am in Bhubaneswar, but along with me, a lot of friends are there. They are from different. They are from different corner of our country. So, what I want to say nowadays, due to the technology development, we are in a position to control the things and how to use it in a very scientific way. It is possible by using geoinformatics. So it is an evolving technology, and that can be used to measure what is that and to monitor whether it is some changes are there or not. Some planning, some modeling, and also decision maker, they can take some decision. So these all things are happening very quickly, and it is also affecting our planet's evolution. So now I am coming to the point, that is now geospatial technology. As you know, it is a very nowadays it is very emerging technology, and it is a convergence of different types of knowledge, different types of things like
Rakesh sir, excuse
Yeah.
me, sir. Sorry to interrupt, sir.
Okay.
Actually, the slides are not moving. So there are the participant, they are also saying that the slides are not moving. So are you presenting the slides, sir? Because this is not moving actually.
No, actually, what I was doing, I was just presenting it.
Okay. By slideshow option?
Yeah,
Yeah,
just a
okay.
minute. Okay, I'm.
Okay, but just share the whole screen and then do the slideshow, then there will be no problem at all.
Okay,
Then
just
you
a minute.
do
I am
the
stopping
movement.
it, and again I will start.
Yeah,
Okay.
again, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So enter screen, na? Okay, ma'am. Now it is visible to you.
It is just now coming.
It is coming, na?
Yeah, it came now. You just if you did as a slideshow,
Okay.
mode, if you do it.
Now it is visible to you.
Yeah, it's better. It's now visible.
Okay,
But
then
the thing was the slide was not moving at that time. That's why.
okay. No, no. Now you just see whether it is moving
Okay.
now.
Yes,
It
yes.
is, okay, okay.
Actually, moving in the sense if you are in a slideshow, then it is not moving.
Okay, then I will stop it now. Okay, fine.
Now this is moving. Now if you do the slideshow now, it will be better that in the huge screen we will able to see.
No, actually earlier also I did the slides, so I think some problem was there.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay, fine. So here you can see different technology are there, like bandwidth is there, GPS, global positioning there, remote sensing technology is there, GIS, ICT, LVS. So these are some cutting edge technology, means some very new technology are there. And in geospatial, what we are doing, it is nothing but a convergence of different technology. Okay, in actually this lecture is for like 20 to 30 minutes. So if in future we can have some other platform, then we can discuss it very briefly. But now I have to cover a lot, so I'm just moving very little quickly. Okay, so here geoinformatics, it is an emerging as new language of our understanding, how we are understanding the world. See here in left side, you can see complex data modeling. By using geospatial technology, we can model a very complex data. Okay, so here in right hand side you can see data is there. Then we are using some tools, and also we are getting some information. So some geoprocessing work is going on. Interactive mapping. Some manpower are there, and they are doing the work. here in left bottom, you can see integration of data. Different types of layers are there, and all the layers can be integrated. Okay. Now in here you can see some visualization. That means whatever we got from the field, that can be integrated and that can be visualized. Then in right hand side, modeling, we can have the model. Like suppose we need some elevation data of an area, then we can go for the digital elevation model, that is DEM. So in this way, we can have a multidisciplinary science, different types of science, different types of technology, they are converged here, and we are now it is we can say it as a geoinformatics. Fine. Here very simply, GIS, G stands for geographic, and no doubt GIS, that is geographic information system, but here you can see G stands for geographic. GIS, it has something to do with maps. Actually in GIS we are dealing with the maps, that's why I have briefed it. And GIS, it has something to do with computers. Means earlier in traditional way we are dealing with some manual methods of doing for doing different maps, other things, cartographic tools were used, but now due to the emerging technology, we are dealing with some computers, some softwares, very sophisticated softwares are used. That's why it is written. Okay, now my basic topic on which now I'm here, so that is about coastal regulation zone, or we can say about coast. What is a coast? So different, like coastal zone, it is the definition given by different researcher, different scientist or geographer. I'm not going one by one, like, but very important, like what I like from my side by Naik sir in 1991, that includes coastal water. A coastal zone, what is a coastal regulation zone? It includes coastal water, tidal wetlands, adjacent shorelines, which are strongly influenced by marine water or vice versa. In our coming slide, I will be explaining it. Here in left side, you can see coastal regulation zone. Here you see territorial water limit up to 12, and here LTL is there, that is low tide line. Here STL, high tide line. So,
Rakesh sir,
yeah.
sorry sir, slides are not changing sir. Continuously the messages are streaming like that. Yes, now it's changed sir.
Okay, then I think by doing this slide slow, it is having some problem.
Okay,
so
sir.
I'm not moving to slide slow. Okay.
Okay.
Just now,
Okay,
just confirm.
Yeah, I understand. Through the slideshow, it is
Yeah.
problem. But otherwise, you
Yeah.
have to share the entire screen, sir.
Yeah,
If you
yeah.
stop presenting and do share by entire screen, then the slideshow. Now, because by slideshow we will able to understand better. Means I think the means the kids means the participant over here are very like they keen to know and they are very interested to see all the pictures also. So if you share entire screen, then they will
Okay,
be
just I'm trying. Actually, I'm
Yeah.
trying to share all my entire screen.
Yeah,
But
it is
some
just
problem is there, I think. Just a minute.
okay. Present now, and then your entire screen you have to click, and then
No,
it will.
entire screen I have played. Just a
Yeah,
minute.
yeah. Now you go into the slideshow. I think it will work now. You go into
Okay.
the slideshow. Yes, now you
Just
run
a
by
minute.
the
I'm
slideshow. Yeah.
It is
Yeah,
good
sir.
now?
Yeah, that's good, sir. That's good.
Okay,
This is now.
so I think I will go for some back.
Yes.
I'll go to yeah.
No, it's
So
good, sir. It's good.
yeah,
Thank
this
you.
slide, yeah, okay. So here you see left side, it is coastal regulation zone. Okay, so I have written here 2011. Actually, in coastal regulation zone, what happened? In 1991 was one notification came from the government of India, Ministry of Environment Forest. Then in 2011, now 2019 is going on. That's why in the bottom I've written 2019 CRZ notification is in progress. So we should know first what is a CRZ, coastal regulation zone, means in our coastal area, the area that is adjacent to the sea, this area, very commonly we are knowing that the area that is adjacent to the sea, that is termed as coastal area. Okay, so in the coastal area, as it is very fragile and it is very dynamic, so that area must be protected. See, in West Bengal, the Sundarban area is there. In Orissa, Bhitarkanika Marine Sanctuary are there. So these are some Ramsar sites. These are very, very ecologically, environmentally, they are very, very sensitive. So the flora and fauna exist in the area. That is also very, very important. And the foremost important is the mangrove. Just straight, we face the Yas cyclone. So as there is a presence of mangrove along the Odisha and West Bengal coast, the Sundarban along with this Odisha coast, the Bhitarkanika area, the coast is protected. Okay, so the importance of coast is very important, not only biologically, environmentally, but in financially also, economically also, the importance of coast is very important. So it must be protected. That's why Government of India and different organizations, they came up with some regulation. Means suppose one industrialist want to make some industry in an area that is very, very nearer to the coast, then they have to seek some permission from the authority, that whether it is a permissible things or it is a restricted one. So in there is a regulation zone. That things we have to know, that whether it is a 500 meter or it is 100 meter or it is 500 meter. So what are the criteria that we have to follow while we are dealing with the coastal regulation zone? But basically in here in the left hand side you can see LTL is there, low tide line. In the left side STL, that is high tide line. So the area between STL and high tide line and LTL, that is intertidal zone. What is STL? Means the sea water, it goes up to here during the spring tide time. During the spring tide time, up to this extent, the water from the sea comes. So this area is termed as high tide line. Okay, but but it is not possible that it will come only to this extent. It also goes beyond this area. So up to 500 meters is written. Up to 500 meters from STL, that area will be treated as coastal regulation zone. That is CRZ. And in seaward side also you can see from LTL, not STL, from low tide line up to 12 nautical miles. This area, that means from here up to here, we is termed as coastal regulation zone. Okay, and in the right side you can see, here you can see where my cursor is there. This is your STL area. From STL 500 meter along the coast. Where there is a coast, there will be 500 meter. But when we are coming to a creek or a river, it will be 100 meter or width of the creek. Suppose it is a big river, then its width may be more than 100 or 200 meters. Then there will be buffer from the river, in both sides of the river, there will be 100 meter of buffer. That buffer line will be termed as CRZ line, coastal regulation zone line. But if the width is very, it is less than 100 meter, here you can see, it is like 20 meters or 30 meters, a creek is there, very small drain are there, then there will be 20 meters. That means width of the creek. This is the basic funda of CRZ, coastal regulation zone. Okay. Then another thing, it is not added in the slide. I'm just telling that see here what I was telling. This is the EEZ, exclusively economic zone. Then territorial sea in the sea side is there in the land part. So this is STL. From STL 500 meter it is CRZ, coastal regulation zone. So in CRZ actually there are different categories are there, like CRZ 1, 2, 3, 4. I have not added it in the slide. Okay, but just I am telling that the sea area, that means the 12 nautical up to 12 nautical miles, that is termed as CRZ 4A. Okay, then here that means this area it is CRZ 4A, but the water body within the creek, that is CRZ 4B. Then CRZ 1 is there. Whenever there is some mangroves are there, some ecological sensitive areas are there, they will be termed as CRZ 1. And if some I can say some urban bodies are there, that will be CRZ 2. And besides all this, whatever is there, that will be CRZ 3. We will be if we will get some opportunity, we will have discussed it later on. See, so there are some very threatening issues that the coastal area is facing right now. Earlier, I was telling the most of the population, like 40% of world population, they are living within 100 kilometers from the coast. So there is a lot of pressure. The coastal area, they are facing a lot of problem. Like, see, in the right hand side, you can see coastal infrastructure. This is the coast, and this is a very density of population are there. So definitely this settlement, they are having the problem. Like coastal dwellings are there, coastal sewage problem are there, mining also happening very rapidly. So these are hampering the coastal. See, due to coastal hazards, there is a sea level rise. Most of the time, we are in our news or something, we are seeing in our paper also, we are seeing there is a increase in sea level rise. So it is having issue to the coastal area. Like, see, here I have given some of the very important issue along the Indian coast. Like coastal erosion, some areas there. In one, you can see some coastal erosion is there. In two, degradation of mangrove and coral reef ecosystem. This area, your mangrove area from Sundarban area is there. This area, your Bhitarkanika, Odisha. So we will, it's not possible now to discuss each and every, but some important things are there. Coastal mining are there, coastal construction are there. Okay, so there are some biodiversity of mangrove swamp. As I was earlier telling that in the coastal area, mangrove, the role of mangrove is very important. In the middle, you can see some mangrove species are there. Here, right hand side, some very beautiful mangroves are there. These are also mangroves, some flora and fauna example. Actually, this is an example of Odisha coast. Some crocodiles are there, crabs are there here, and the Eurasia's very beautiful olive lily sea turtles are there. So there are some biodiversity that we found along the coast. Now, the important thing is that how remote sensing and GIS is useful in studying the coastal issue. Here, in a very simple way, I try to describe that we are using different active or passive sensors. What is active or passive? I think you might have known that basic funda of geoinformatics. But here, in different preliminary study, that we can go for some ocean color monitoring, then sea surface temperature can be we can have that, then salinity mapping. So these are some application. Okay, now why GIS is important? Why GIS and remote sensing is important in dealing with this coastal issue? Now you can see this particular diagram. Earlier I was describing it. Like here in GIS, we are dealing with remote sensing, demography, population study, geological study, geographical study. So all this study can be convergent with all together, and in GIS we are trying to get some output. Okay, so in GIS, what we are doing, we are generating some information, we are assembling some information. Suppose by using this remote sensing, I am getting a satellite image of a particular area. Okay, then by using this demographic information, suppose I am having the population or census data of an area. So I am converging the remote sensing technology along with the demographic study, and I can have the different output. Now represent the real world things, like what is there in our terrain, in our earth, what is there, suppose you are in an area, whatever you are seeing, like a river is there, a pond is there, a forest is there, all the things can be represent in our in a GIS system. Okay, and for that people is needed, some software is needed, some data is needed, some procedures, some models are applied, then some hardwares are needed. So by converging all the things, the GIS technology is there, and it is very useful for coastal study. And by using this geoinformatics, we can have this. Some examples are there, like coastal zone information system. You can have the shoreline change, whether the shoreline is changing. In my slides, I will be showing if some sediment transport are there, whether coastal erosion is there or not. We can have the modeling, and like coastal subsidence is there, whether coastal inundation or some flooding is there, some ecological modeling, then vulnerability, tsunami, flooding, coastal pollution, all the things can be modeled and we can monitor it. Here, one example, see coastal zone inventory. Here, in interpretation, we should have some knowledge about what is there in the we should know what is a satellite image, and like here some we should know that this is a sea area and these are some island areas. So we should have some basic knowledge. Here one list four satellite sensors are there, and some visual interpretation keys are there, like it is interpreted at mangrove, intertidal modes, salt pans, mangrove, all the things are it is interpreted. So we should have some knowledge. Here another example of interpretation keys. In the right hand side you can see a field picture of a intertidal mud flat. So how it looks in satellite image. Here in arrow area you can see this is the mud flat area. Okay, so just I've given an example. By this, suppose how a mangrove looks like in a satellite image, or this is another example. This is right hand side. This is some saline intrusion area is there. This is a saline affected area. So in the left hand side you can see in satellite image how it looks. So we should have idea, okay, how to use the satellite image. Here by using the remote sensing and geoinformatics, we can map an area, that is land use land cover map. This is the left hand side, one satellite image is there. That satellite image is now converted into a coastal land use map. So what is what? Suppose this is some agricultural land is there, some canals is there, whatever present in the terrain, that is mapped here. Okay, it is possible by using geospatial technology, and this land use land cover map is very important while studying the coast. Because just in an example, just try to listen that in just recently Odisha and West Bengal visited by Yes cyclone. So what was the condition of Odisha and West Bengal before Yes cyclone, and what is the condition after the cyclone? So what is the damage? So the damage assessment can be done by using the coastal land use map. Okay, here just I've given some shoreline delineation, how to delineate a shoreline, or how to know that this is the high tide line. Here in this area you can say this is your sea area, and here up to this area actually the high tide is coming, the coastal water is coming up to this, because here some permanent vegetation is there and it is not going landward. So this area can be termed as high tide line. Likewise, from landward bomb, one geomorphological term bomb is there. Up to this actually the from here the coast water is coming. So this area can be termed as high tide line. That means from here the STL is not going landward. Okay. Then sea wall. So you might have seen in coastal area in sea some artificial sea wall are there. So the water is coming up to here only. Okay, so this is seawall, and this area can be high tide line. Or suppose here some sand dunes are there, so up to sand dunes, the water is coming. A cliff is one example. But here, very important thing is that the landward boundary of the mangrove. Wherever mangrove is there, the landward part is considered as STL, because see, this is this area. My cursor is there. Try to see over here. This area is it is a coastal sea is there. So this area it is not going to be the high tide line, because this mangrove it can sustain only in seawater. That means the water is coming up to here. This is the mangrove outside mangrove up to landmass up to here. The mangrove is there. That means this is the high tide line. Okay, so these are some methods. Some other methods are also there. Other parameters are there. How to delineate, how to know that this is the high tide line. This is one example of a shoreline change. Actually, like in May 2014, what was the condition? Then here I've given some different area, different location of India. Like here you can see Odisha and West Bengal. One example is there. Andaman Nicobar is there. So different areas examples are there. Here different shoreline changes analysis have been carried out. Like coastal habitat monitoring, you can see here in the left hand side mangrove community zonation map. What are the different mangrove species are there that can be mapped? In the left hand side you can see Gulf of Kutch. Then in this area the coral reefs have been interpreted. Mangrove dynamics. See in this left hand side Malad Creek, it is in Maharashtra. So here you can see that this area, it is in very small portion. This reddish you can see, this is some mangrove. Okay, but now you see it is vanished. Means this is some sorts of artificial things are there, or they have degraded it due to some reason. This mangrove have been degraded. So these changes can be traced out or can be analyzed by using the our GIS technology. Now here one of my case study for Bhitarkanika Wildlife Sanctuary in Orissa, for a period of like 40 years, it is I did the work. Here in 1973, 85, 95, and 5 and 17, the normalized different vegetation index have been studied. What was the exact vegetation cover in this area? In between this 5 span of different year, we can have the study. Here we found that the dense vegetation is very decreasing. Here you can see in year 73 it was 35 square kilometer, but it is decreasing very rapidly. In 17 it is 22.43. So what I want to say, the application of geoinformatics and GIS is very vital, and by using the technology, now we are in a position to know that what is happening and how it is happening and why it is happening. So if we know all the things, then we can plan for that, how to restore the mangrove, or how to make one coastal area stable. If it is an erosion one, how to make it a stable. All these things can be planned out by using GIS. Now this is another example of a island dynamics. So in different time period, the degradation of this particular island have been studied. That's all. If any query, please ask. I will be happy. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. It's such an informative such an informative session is this is, and I liked a lot, and I loved your all the slides actually. That's why I'm keep telling that please share it again. So sorry for that, sir, actually.
No. Actually, ma'am, what is happening now? Actually, a lot of things are there, but due to this shortage of time, and today I think before an hour or 2 hour only, BRC just called me that this such thing is required.
Okay, okay.
So I also got very less time in preparing the works actually. So if in future we'll get some
Yeah,
time,
sir.
definitely, yeah.
Yes. So some people raised here. I saw that some raised here their hand. Like,
Okay. Anyone can ask.
yeah, anyone can ask any question. Please ask. Participant, over to you. Did anyone
Hello.
want? Yes. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I just wanted to know that you actually talked about the coastal part. Uh, how one would be able to sort of realize? You see, it is only after studying the satellite images which are interpreted, and then we are able to make out certain delineations which were existing, and then how they have changed over the course of time. And you have talked about the coastal scenario, basically, and in the end, you also mentioned about the green cover thing. Now,
Yes.
actually, I wanted, I mean, it is very easy to understand that this particular, you see, the time lapse kind of comparison would tell us a lot about how changes have actually occurred. But what I want to know, how would it help in our day-to-day life of, let us say, in urban planning or something like that, I mean, how it could be employed if we can help our cities, maybe, if we can same way track the congestion of the motor vehicles, at what time it is, whether we can do something about that to alleviate the problems which confront our urban areas and rural areas. I mean, that I wanted to know how one could go about, doing that.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Uh, Actually, so you would like to know that in urban area, how this geospatial technology can be useful. Am I right, sir?
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, Actually, sir, we are. I am in actually coastal wing area, but thing is that in Odisha also we are having some plan for your urban planning, like urban green zonation work we are doing, and also some cadastral level mapping are going on.
Yeah.
And so, like in BMC is there, Bhubaneswar Municipality Corporation. So,
Yes.
what now we are working in a very beautiful project, that is NLRMP, sir, National Land Record Monitoring Program. Here,
Yeah.
what we are doing, we are modernizing the cadastral level plot data at 1:4,000 scale. Okay.
Yes.
And now we are we have not developed. It is in progress. That we are one model. Now we are working on that. So if some in BMC area only, if some new activity is going on, okay. So in a near real time, we are getting the statistic, or this particular location can map if some new activity is going on. This thing we are doing, along with some urban sprawl area also, like for a period of 1 year, 2 year, we are monitoring regularly.
Yeah.
And okay, all the things, sir. And also some traffic related works also we are now dealing with, like some GPS inbuilt work is there. And another very important is that for the mining trucks are there in Odisha, it is it is full of mining area is there. So
Yes.
we have taken one project so that the materials that is taken from the mines, so that can be traced out. So where it is there and how much is going on, what is the exact area. So these things are now we are dealing with, sir.
Okay.
Sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay, I am going in the chat section. Is there anything?
Sir, is there anything else? Okay, right. There is some question, yes.
Yeah, I'm going. Actually, in the first section, only about that screen problem was there. That thing is written.
Yeah, then after at the, like, if
Yeah,
you scroll down, at
I'm
the end there
scrolling
was
down.
2-3 question. Yeah.
Reconnect. Okay, one question raised by Satyajit Nath. Okay. Yeah, Satyajit, are you there? Satyajit Nath, are you there? Are you listening to me? Hello. I think he's not there. One very good question raised by Satyajit Nath regarding how geospatial technology is useful in the regulation of plots. Hello, okay.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm audible now.
Okay, now I want to give some answer to this. As you were asking that how the geospatial technology can be useful in regulation of plots. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Actually, directly, you know that we can't regulate the plots. That's okay. That is like some, if some rains, heavy rains are there, or something happen, or like some artificial problem is there, or some there is a heavy water from discharge from the reservoir. That is one thing. But I'm see, suppose you are dealing with a coastal area. Okay, some lowlands area are there, and also some highlands area are there. Okay, so what you can do, you can have the DEM. You can suppose you got one satellite image of an area. Your area of interest, suppose a block is there. You can have the satellite image. Then you can have the DEM, digital elevation model. You can make for your data, for your area. Okay, then you can know that this is your the area having high altitude, and this area is having low altitude. Okay, suppose I'm what I'm doing, suppose I have classified the total area into 3 zones. Okay, one area is having high altitude area. Okay, another area it is very low lying area, another area is stable, like some your settlements are there. So if you are having the data, if you know that this is your you can map the area, you made the area, you made the zones, then this is my lowland area, this is my highland area, and this is my stable area. So during, suppose some flooding is there, if some emergency is there, you can mitigate the people, you can migrate the people from low-lying area to the highland area. So this, by this way you can have the this geospatial technology can be useful. And another important thing, actually, what you do, don't mind, but I'm asking because I want to share something to you.
Okay, sir.
Basically, what you do actually. Satyajit.
Hello, sir. It's not audible. Can you please repeat?
Yeah, I'm asking what you do actually, whether you are a researcher or you are working somewhere.
No, sir. I'm a BSc final year student from University of Rajasthan.
Oh, University of Rajasthan, that's fine actually. I'm very close to Rajasthan actually.
Yeah, sir. I'm a student of BSc Geology.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Fine. Okay, fine. So you just do one thing. You just go to that USGS. That Earth Explorer is there. United States Geographic Association is Geographic Survey. USGS is there. So you can register yourself there, and you can have a lot of data that is freely available. Okay, for your research purpose, you can get it. Or you do one thing, you send me your mail ID so that I will share something to you in your mail ID. Okay, what you can do for that.
Sure, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Whether Samanya Gadam, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. You are asking for cyclone.
Yes, sir. If there's a cyclone approaching the land, so how would you predict beforehand? So, and then what is the technology goes on?
See, right now the inquest, it is in Hyderabad. Actually, they are predicting the cyclone, and as a end user or like a space in a state space application center, we can do the post damage assessment like that. But how to predict that, all the things, it is beyond our limitation actually in mines where I am working. But you can go to the inquest. It is in the Ministry of Arts Science, Government of India. They are actually dealing with the prediction of your cyclone. Okay.
Okay, sir.
But we can do the assessment, the pre and post damage assessment due to cyclone. All the things can be undertaken by using remote sensing sensors. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So other questions is there, like from Kalamegam, one of the participant.
Yeah, I got it. Kalamegan, okay. This question is regarding the ecological sensitive area, that is ESA. Okay. Maps of India district level. Are you there so that I can answer?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to know if there is any websites which have this kind of GIS data for India. Like we have this water data regularized website. Like
Yeah, I'm telling. Actually, now the NCSCM, that is National Center for Sustainable Coastal Management, located in Chennai, they are the authority to provide the ecological sensitive area. Okay, and now actually based on the CRZ notification 2019, okay, the demarcation of CRZ along with the your ESA is going on, and in some states it is approved by the MOEF, Government of India, but it is in progress actually. I think in the coming 4 to 5 months it will be available in public. You just keep an eye in NCSM website. Otherwise, you can go for your state level coastal zone management authority. They will be publishing. In some states, it is public. It is also published in some state partially. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. River basin or river mapping. Yeah, another question from JP Sharma.
Yes, sir.
You are asking about study of river basin.
Yeah, river basin analysis, and I want to ask the drainage density map.
Drainage density, na? Okay.
Yeah.
So first of all, I would like to answer about your drainage morphometry. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So whether you know about that dam data of Aster, have you heard that?
No.
Okay. So just write down two things. One is SRTM data. Another one is Aster, ASTER. Okay. ASTER, Aster, and another one is SRTM, capital SRTM. Okay.
Okay.
And another website, write it down. It is USGS, United States, I think Geological Survey, I think USGS.
Yeah.
Okay. So in this website, you can access it, and you will find the dam data. And by using the dam data, you have to go through some software, like in ArcGIS also it is possible. You can go for some open source software like QGIS. You can have how to extract the drainage, how to calculate the different aerial or relief or different aspect of your drainage density. All the things can be done. Now actually in this platform it is not possible to explain, but I just provided you some clue. Just go through that, you can get the, and if personally if you again you want to know, then you can reach to me through my mail ID. Okay.
Oh, okay, sir.
Yeah. And similarly, like you are asking about the river basin and river mapping. The river mapping, it is like you are having the satellite image, and you can you can map it by using your basic visual interpretation keys, having your own idea, you can do it. And for river basin, actually, in you can go for one Bhuvan website is there, Government of India, BHUVN Bhuvan. Okay. In Bhuvan also you can have some, I think some data about river basin is there. You can get it from there also. Okay.
Oh, okay, sir. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Okay. I think, ma'am, it is over, or someone has left.
Did somebody wanted to ask?
I think. Yeah.
Yes.
Please.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Tell me.
No, I think we have covered whatever question answer was there.
Yes.
Besides this, if someone wants to ask something, then it's welcome.
Yeah, that's I am also asking that if somebody want to ask, you can.
Sir, I have a question too.
Yeah,
Yeah, please.
You raised hand also. Yes, tell.
Yes.
Ask. Yes.
Sir, so you mentioned how the ecology of an area can be monitored, like over a period of time, like the mangrove cover over a period, like you showed before and after pictures. So, sir,
Yeah.
like I'm assuming, like if you're covering a big area, there must be like thousands of pictures in like different spectrums. So, how exactly is it like? How exactly do you notice these changes? Because like I'm assuming it's automated, like you so like how exactly is it done? I'm asking from a more like the technology point of view.
Yeah, see, right now some machine learning program is going on. Okay, and some web application program are also going on. So traditionally, or now, most of the things what we are doing, like suppose I'm working in a very small area, like for a district, or maybe for 2 or 3 districts. It is possible that we are downloading some scenes that covers like 1 or 2 district. But as you are asking that if you want to have the area like a state or what you want, just limit your area so
Yes,
that
like any, yeah.
focus for a state, na?
Yes, for like any large area, like
No, large area means
because
just please. No, please define
yeah,
whether.
like for example, like if you're examining the coastline of Odisha, like the
Okay.
mangrove cover,
Yeah,
like the
fine.
entire coastline.
Okay, fine. See, in one of my slides, I think I have mentioned about NDVI. Okay. NDVI.
Right.
Okay. So just very simply, now the USGS, they are giving the data free of cost. Fine. That is one source. Another one in India also, in Bhuvan also, you are getting the satellite data. So if you want to map for a larger area, then you have to limit your scale. The scale should be a smaller one. Is it? Scale should be small one. Okay. So just first do one thing. Suppose you have to first arrange the satellite image. Fine. You might get it from any source like from USGS or whatever. Then in a very simple click by using ADAS, that is one digital image processing based software, or NVI, ENVI, NV, or you can go for GIS, that is your ArcMap, or even it is possible in your QGIS, that is your open source software. Okay, just mosaic all the satellite data and just run the model NDVI, so that you can have a click that this is the area having dense vegetation, it is a medium vegetation and low vegetation, or it is a water body, or it is a non-vegetation area that can be mapped easily. This is I'm telling about the traditional method, what most of the people right now are doing. But another aspect is like in a large scale, how we can do. Okay, for that, some machine learning program is also there. Some good your scripts are there. That if you are using that, then things can be done very quickly. Okay.
Right. Mhm. So okay, so the NDVI is the name of the model, so.
NDVI means it is a normalized difference vegetation index indices. Means suppose you are in an area, you have to extract the only the vegetation. Okay, so NDVI is nothing but it is having one formula is there, that is NIR, near infrared, minus IR, infrared, divided by NIR plus IR. Okay, uh, why this formula is given? Because in whether you are having some idea about the electromagnetic your EMR spectrum, some bands are there like visible, IMR, IR.
Yes, sir.
Nah? Okay, if you know that, then you will be knowing that in NIR and IR, these two bands, they reflect the vegetation more actually. Okay, that's why suppose we are having 5 or 6 bands, out of that we are extracting or we are focusing only these two bands, that is NIR and IR. And if we are deducting the IR band from NIR divided by NIR plus IR, this is the standard formula. And if you are applying this formula, then your total scene will be classified into an NDVI. NDVI is nothing but indices. Like suppose you want to extract the water body from a satellite image, then you can go for NDWI, normalized difference water index. Fine. It is nothing but a very simple model is there. Customize.
Right, sir.
Yeah,
So,
you can do it customized. Yes.
So sir, like so you mentioned like Bhuvan, like I was looking for like data sets for India, like if there is some like labeled data sets for classification, like some satellite images or something. So like, can you tell me if there are some?
Yep. You please 1 second repeat, because actually I could not hear you properly. You please
Like,
repeat.
are there some like labeled, like USGS provides labeled data, like there's Google Earth Engine that that provides like labeled satellite images for like parts of the world. So
Yeah.
is there some like India's specific resources, like if there is, like you mentioned Bhuvan, right?
Bhuvan, yeah.
Yeah, Bhuvan. So so like I've tried to use it, so like it's just a map, but if you can get like the proper data set, like organize or something with the labels and images and everything.
Yeah. In Bhuvan, you are mentioning that you are you have tried to access it and you are getting only some data, like you are not getting the satellite image. Is it?
No, I'd want the data specifically, like
Satellite data
like you said,
or attributional data?
satellite data.
No, you want to get the satellite data, that is raster data or vector data you want to get.
I
Because
am not exactly sure. Like I'm just like trying this out, so I don't
no,
really
no, for what I am telling, uh, actually for raster data, for satellite images, actually some organizations are there, and for vector data also some organizations are there. Okay, like if you want to get some boundary or some shape files like that of an area, then you have to go to some website they are providing. And like in Survey of India, they are giving the topo sheet for entire country. Okay, in Bhuvan you can get the, I think the list 3 image is available, I think, in your Bhuvan. Just try for it. Okay.
All right, sir. I'll look at it again. Okay.
Otherwise you can touch me. I'm there. Okay. I'm giving my number
Okay.
also.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Hello, ma'am. It
Yes,
is all
yes.
right. or something
Yes,
is there?
sir. Yeah. I think it's done. Uh, about the shareable things, I think only the video will be the shareable. Okay. No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's why I'm not sure. Yeah.
only the video is shareable. So I wanted to give you information, all the participant, that the video will be shareable, but in case of any PPT or any material, I think it's not going to share. But depend upon the lecture type of lecture, means because from tomorrow we are moving into the hands-on training. So of course there will be some document might be available, or wholly depend upon the training, the type of training, of course. So like tomorrow there is a hands-on training will be there. It will be taken by our IIGST resource from Manas sir and Mr. Manas Uday sir, and from Mr. I think there is Shahid sir. One Shahid sir is this Shahid Gulzar sir. So they are also the geospatial technology people, GIS people, and they will provide some hands-on training, definitely on the basic of purely on the basics of the remote sensing and geospatial data. And I think some of the thirst and some of, if somebody is very new in this field, they will be understand much in better way here. So thank you, sir. This was a very informative for all of us, and thank you for your cooperation, and even you shared your number also. So we are very grateful to you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
No,
Okay, then.
yeah, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, of course, sir. So there is
Okay.
our sir, Manas sir is here. Manas sir.
Okay, then, ma'am, I am leaving.
1 minute, sir. Just a
Okay.
second. Manas sir, are you here? I would like to call Manas sir. I think there might be some network issue. Manas sir, Manas Uday sir, are you here? Okay, the Manas is going to take class for tomorrow, so he will join tomorrow along with you. Yes, sir, Manas sir, are you here, sir?
Yes, madam.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
here.
Yes, sir. Over to you, sir.
Okay. Okay. So thank you, all of you who are participated in this 2 days workshop. So now it is time for the giving the vote of thanks. So I say to all of you that good evening to one and all gathered here on this wonderful evening. I would like to present the vote of thanks, and it gives me immense pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks over here today. We take this golden opportunity to thank the respected chief guest, or we can say the keynote speaker, or who gave the special lecture today, the Dr. Anil Kumar Gupta sir and Dr. Rakesh Ranjan Thakur, for their valuable time and to join this workshop for very beginning day, and their valuable time from his busy schedule. We will cultivate the advice you gave us, and we will gain some knowledge from your talk in our real life and in application for earth resource management. So thank you, sir, both of you. Again, I extend my gratitude to the respected chairman and the director of IIGST, and also SIAD, and also the director of Geoinformatics Division, Dr. Munmun Bormon, for their valuable talks over here. With that, again, I thank you one and all wholeheartedly who are present today. With that, I am just closing today's session and in this session, and I am announcing here that we will again meet tomorrow at the same time. For that, I hope you are keeping well, and we will meet you again tomorrow. Thank you all.